Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pursuit of Relentless podcast. Today I have Alison Lager with me, and we just had such a powerful conversation before actually hitting record. So we're going to get real today and maybe a little bit emotional, but I'm excited for you guys to get access to her because she's changing lives out there. And I hope that you guys get a lot of value out of today's episode, and I know you will. So welcome to the show, Alison.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us about your journey. I know it's been a lot of ups and downs for you, but what got you into entrepreneurship and what has led you to be in the field you're in today? And maybe you can talk about the field you're in and what you've done.
Sure. Basically, my story is obviously a long one because I've lived a life. So I'm going to breeze through it, but not to minimize the different experiences, but just to give like a picture. So if you zoom out and you look at my life, it almost appears to be like something that would be in like a really bad movie, you know, like that maybe somebody made up who wasn't really thinking well. So basically, I grew up, I was born to intellects, both and hippies. So my house was chaotic, messy. There was a lot happening. There was always people in and out of the house, and I was neglected as a child in the name of freedom, freedom, love, peace, love, and all that shenanigans. So basically a little girl who grows up like that, I learned very quickly how to manage my life on my own and navigate the different things, the different people, places, and things and that were around me on my own. And so part of that created a resilience in me and a strength where I've always been very independent. I've had a lot of autonomy because and a lack of trust. So what happened was there's so many different things, but I was sexually abused. I was neglected. I also, as I went through my life, I was insecure. I developed an eating disorder that I was hospitalized for 28 days. Right before that eating disorder kind of really blew up. I was an approval seeker, people pleaser, but always striving to be the best. So I was like the girl who always wanted the perfect life, but never believed I could do the work to get there, but I would never be the girl who got the princess bedroom, the girl who got the great relationship, the girl who had a pretty house. So, when I was like in first grade, I used to have, people drop me off 4 blocks away at my uncle's house because I didn't want anyone to see my house because it was the house with the lawn. It was a house with like just, not like the manicured upper class area I lived in. So anyhow, I smile through all of this because every single ounce of this I know it all was happening for me throughout my life. It was developing me and building me into something. It was like muscling me into all these creative parts of myself that I just love right now. And, but it's also the parts that really had hurt a lot. Prior to being hospitalized, I had a fiance. I had a string of very bad boyfriends, to like a lot of them. But one of them, this is actually, I laugh at this because it sounds like it's freaking made up, but I was actually had a boyfriend that I lived with, and he was a drug dealer, guns, dogs in the house, like high end kind of thing. And while I was there, a girl was in the house. I wasn't using drugs. I was upstairs sleeping. I was getting a 4.0 in college. Him and another guy were in the living room with a girl, and I went to bed. Several days later, I find out the girl's missing. She was murdered, and I ended up being in the murder trial because I was the only one who could put the girl with the guy who killed her. And I did, and that happened. So then after that, I moved out of that place, and I just escaped like a whole drug raid. So I would have been, I would have been arrested with the rest of the gang, but I wasn't I wasn't even, I was going to school. I was, the whole time. So basically I ended up moving out. I'm trying to say it really quickly. And then he was arrested. And then, so that is that. I won't go into the details. Then go on with my life. I find a great church. I become a Christian. I'm living a really, really good life, going to school, really into 12-step program, personal development. And I get a boyfriend who has a couple of years clean. And so we're in line. It seems like a great thing. I really loved him. And he was my fiance. He ended up slipping, going back out. I break up with him. I get delivered to my house, 24 roses with a suicide note on it. And and I go and I read it. I call the police. I call his family. I go to the apartment. We break the window and I find him dead. So now this is my early 20s. So, now here I have this lot, and, so this is like, this kind of went along with the life of someone who believed that I could do all the things. So here I am, I'm going to school, I'm getting a 4.0. I'm like kind of like this parallel lives, and then the people I'm choosing, the choices I'm making of the people, whatever is I'm drawing into my life makes it so that I could get right up to there, but then bam, it's gone. It like fit with that mind, that belief that I didn't even know I had. So that, I managed and got through that grief not easily. It was really horrifying for me. It was like the worst thing in the world for me, just horrible. And, and then I just went through my life, and I have had a series of I have 4 kids. I have had just consistently, I opened up a private practice. It just continued to grow. I let it grow. I have like 32 employees. I have like 5 locations. It just was, I was always doing really well. My husband that I married was like the love of my life. Just incredible man. And really, he was like the mother I never had. He like took care of me. And I always say that. And he was in the military 21 years, and he had a sudden onset of PTSD. And he, 2 and like years and like 8 months ago, he put a gun in his mouth and he killed himself. And he died by suicide. Yeah. So, and here is this time where I'm like feeling like I'm at the top. I'm feeling so great. Like everything's good. And it was so quick. And there was like no time. Meanwhile, I own counseling centers. There's so much shame involved, but I don't care. I mean, I care, obviously. I don't care about that because I believe in telling the truth. Mm-hmm. I believe in sharing, if anyone ever has, the suicide mind is, I've had it. It's not it could take over someone, so, but anyhow, we want to talk about what all of those things did. When I was writing my book, I was this is before my husband died. I was on my last edit, and I went to the mountains by myself to do the last edit. And it was amazing. And then I had this supernatural experience where, but it was God, I believe, that just came to me and just was like, you've hidden your talent for far too long. It's time for you to share, where your true education is from. Mm-hmm. And so I went back into the book and I wrote the tragedy stories and how I just kept climbing out of these dark situations and triumphing over them. And I wrote all of that in there. It was hard for me. Everybody thought it was, she has 8 years of college. She has all this experience. Well, it had nothing to do with,
all the shit that you had to go through to get to where you're at. Right.
Yeah. So should I continue? You want me to?
Yeah, no, please.
Okay. So basically, I do that, and 10, I was working like for 3 days from 5 in the morning till 10 at night, writing, rewriting the whole thing. at the very, very end, I lost all of the edits. Everything was just and yeah. So I had to call my editor. We tried for like 7 hours to find it. It doesn't matter. What my point in that is, I had to at that moment wrestle, like, how could this possibly be happening for me? I believe that every single thing, I always knew it. Every situation I was in, even though, they came from my choices, every single one of those things happened because they were there to create something in me. And what it created in me was an ability to feel feelings and to understand the depth of different types of despair and fear. And it has given me an ability to understand pain. And I think that to understand is to love, and to be understood is to be loved. So I knew that every time some really big thing would happen, I knew that somehow this was for me to be a gift to other people, because there's something about somebody not judging. It made me not judge others. It made me understand any kind of suffering. It made me understand that the value. So I can sit with somebody with an eating disorder. I take my thing, I put my stake in the ground. I'm like, let's just sit here. I understand, and I don't judge you. That is, to me, a gift. And what an honor to have counseling centers. What an honor to see generations of people just get better just because they're loved and understood. So to me, all of it. So that all happened. The book was gone. So I'm wrestling back and forth. I call my husband, like, you got to tell me something. There's got to be something good happening out of this. What is it? What is it? And he's like, oh my God, Alison, I'm sorry. I can't think of anything. He's like, I can't think of a damn thing that's good about you losing all of that. But it was good. And then I didn't write the book. I put it down. And then my husband died. But the whole point is that there is something I have, like day 3 after he died, I was in my house. I look around, we're all in the living room. I look at my kids and I'm like, okay, we have to somehow, I don't know how, gain more than we've lost.
Yeah.
If it takes us the rest of our lives, let's just do that. And they're all like, yes, let's do that. So I kept a journal next to my bed, and I would write down every day, what did I gain today? And I heard you say that before. What did I gain? After a year and a half, after my husband died, I said, I'm going to write my wins from the day you died. What did I win all that time? And I was like, wow, I did that. I did that. How have I become a different person? What has it done for me? And so I want to make sure that I don't talk too much, and that if you have things to say, I don't want to so are there things that you want me to talk about besides that?
Well, thank you for being so honest with your story. And I know before we started recording, we were talking about what I've been struggling with and what I'm currently going through. And I've had people in my life that are like, Alaina, you just need to go talk to a therapist. And I'm sitting there going, why? Why do I need to talk to someone? I'm going through it okay. And then I sit there in the back of my head and go, how am I really? Like Jenna Kutcher's book, right? How are you really? And I'm like, I don't know how I really am. But when you're looking for those aspects of yourself that you're able to push through, and like you said, journaling, I'm documenting the journey, not every day, but like when I'm feeling it, when I'm really like high, or I'm really low, or I'm really just like feeling inspired to write something down, I was putting it in my journal. And one of the things that I've been doing is, obviously I had a very different outlook on what my year was going to look like. I thought I was going to be a mom, and then I'm like, okay, no, not today, at least, right? Maybe like you said, happened for your friend. Maybe I'll have another baby really soon. I don't know. But what can I take from it, right? What can I take from it that's going to serve me and serve other people in my life? And one of the things I've decided to do is write a book about it. because I'm like, I just know that there's so many people out there struggling with infertility, and so many people out there that have had so many bigger struggles than I've had to go through. Like, one of my friends lost her son at 30, like imagine having 30 years with your child and then boom, he's gone, and like, I didn't have to go through that. So I'm like, I'm grateful that I can look for ways that I didn't have to struggle, or my baby didn't have to struggle. And my friend was like, all he knew was love, and I'm just like finding peace with that and going, okay, all he knew was love. All he knew was joy. All he knew was comfort, And then I look at that and I'm like, okay, what good can I take from this? And what can I do to grow through this and feel it? And I made the decision for myself, because one of the things that I struggle with is marijuana. And I've had so many people that have just been like, what do you mean you're a pothead? And I'm like, I love weed. I love it because it helps me focus, and it helps me really just like feel like I've got it all together, and it helps me be active. And so I'm always skinnier when I'm smoking weed, and because I'm like, I want to go for a run and I drink a lot more water. And so one of the decisions I've made for myself, and I know I want you to talk about why, but one of the decisions that I've made through this last pregnancy is to not go back to it. And I mean, just making that decision for myself is like, terrifying to me, because I don't know myself without it, right? Like, I've always had that crutch, and I've always been able to just go back to it and feel better and be fine and push it under the rug, right? And so this time I'm feeling it. And trust me, I'm feeling it, And so not going back to that habit of just like, okay, I'm feeling shitty, I'm going to go smoke a joint and just totally numb myself out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn who I am at my core without it, And so maybe you can talk about that a little bit, on why people struggle with marijuana or just drugs, and possibly like alcoholism or something like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's my thing. The thing, there's so many things that you said, but when you were describing, talking about allowing yourself to feel and allowing yourself to just be with you, what I thought was, this is your first, you have parented, but this is your first it's a real parenting thing that you're doing for yourself, because you're giving, we do have a tendency to want to stop our children's feelings, but there's something about allowing somebody to move through their feeling and not to fill the void. Because I think I see feelings as just like going to the bathroom, blowing your nose. If you hold that in, you get all clogged up. Feelings are meant to just move through us. And then it's like a fresh rain, like there's like a lightness that happens when they move through. And one of the things that happens, unfortunately, we see, at Lager Counseling Services, we do med management. And one of the things we'll see is people come in and, they're smoke every day, or they're on other medications that are like mind and mood altering. And what ends up happening is we have like a baseline that is us, heart rate, respiration rate, all of those things. But then when we use any substance for a period of time, it lowers it or raises it depending upon the drug. But what happens when we don't have it, then it mimics, it will overshoot. It's called the rebound effect, and it will overshoot your natural baseline. So what will happen is then you'll feel as if this is the thing that's helping you, because when then you smoke again, you'll go back to what seems to be the normal state.
Yeah.
But studies have shown, and it's a really big thing, but it's become legal, but it's still true that it creates something called the amotivational syndrome. And people aren't realizing it because they're just living in it. THC stays in your body for 30 days. So, at minimum. And basically what will happen is you won't notice that you have this kind of lack, even if you're doing things that seemingly are motivating, they feel like they're motivating, that you're probably at a lower rate of motivation. And it takes away the opportunity to gain momentum, in your life. And also, just the truth is, like, if you had a little kid and they were upset and they were like, I can't manage this, I don't have energy to do this. I mean, you wouldn't give them a blunt. It's like you wouldn't say, hey, take a hit off this pen, you wouldn't. So it's like, what would you do? How would you help them to gain energy? How would you help them to exercise the whatever it is that's happening with them into, like, channel it into something that's really for their greatness? Yeah. I feel like your loss is opened up a door to your higher level greatness. Mm-hmm. Like, every one of our experiences, I just did a little mini video on, because people ask me, oh, how'd you get successful? I'm like, I don't know, left foot, right foot, I guess. So it's basically like left foot, right foot, steady. You get steady. Then you step up, left foot, right foot, wobbly, learn something, steady, and you just keep going. Then you fall back down, but it builds you up. And it's just basically everything that you're doing, your story right now, your loss and your gain from your loss, because there's both, right? Because he's your drug and alcohol counselor. A badass boy right there. Who else will get you clean, right? Who else? I know we see it all the time. We can't get anybody clean. What the hell's going on, right? But and he did it. And I'm shifting. Like, I'm gonna ask you a question. Go for it. I forgot. Wait, because like a therapist always asks questions, so it's like, yeah, not my role.
That's okay. I'm open to questions.
Yeah. So what do you, what does it feel like when I say about, a motivational syndrome? Very part?
Oh, it hits home.
Yeah.
It hits home. Because I feel like it's trying to find that baseline of, okay, I want to feel good again. And I want to feel that motivated state. And with marijuana for myself, it helps me focus. And it really helps me focus on the good parts of myself, because when I first started smoking, a fun fact, I started smoking when I was 17. I was in pastry school, so I used to eat a bunch of food and whatever, and then I wanted to continue smoking weed, and I went and worked in a camp as the pastry chef. I worked the opposite shift of everyone else, and so everyone was at work when I was working, or sleeping, sorry. And then I'd get up and I'd go for a run because I couldn't smoke there. So I'd tuck it in my bra and I would run for a couple kilometers down the road, and I'd sit on a beach and I'd just enjoy a little bit of a hash pipe or like smoke a joint and try not to like draw attention to myself. But I ended up losing 100 pounds in 6 months. And then people were like, are you doing cocaine, Alaina? And I was like, not a freaking chance. Like, no. But I didn't want to admit what it was that I was doing. But that's what helped me get fit. And so my brain at 18 then molded itself into going, okay, this is what your baseline is. Like, you want to be healthy, you want to be fit, and that is marijuana, right? And so at my best physique in my life, I was high as fuck, And then I'm like, I wasn't able to actually like take in the joy that I was making from all of the business success and having a good body and that kind of stuff, because I was just numbing. And over the last 2.5 years of me struggling with this and getting pregnant and quitting, and then going into like, I have no motivation. I gained a bunch of weight. I've put on about 70 pounds again. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, yeah. What is happening? Like, this isn't me. Like, I'm not overweight anymore. I'm fit. I'm healthy. I do these things for myself. Like, I finished Live Hard even after my 3rd miscarriage. And I'd lost 2 I've had 2 miscarriages during that year of doing Live Hard. But I was like, you know what? I know I'm better than this. And I know that I can take my power back just by stepping up and going, I know how to do this. I know how to get back to that strong mental state. But every time I went back to weed, every time. And so when you're talking about that motivation, it's like, yeah, I just know how to go back to that. But now I'm like, no, it totally just like levels you back down to, this is where I feel comfortable, right? So instead of just going, okay, I want to feel comfortable, or I want to feel good in my body, and I want to feel energized, how can I do that without marijuana is now what I'm aiming for, right? Because then I can teach other people what that looks like for them as well.
Yeah. Under every single drug is something called emotional sobriety is the real thing to, obtain. So like the drug is just the drug of no choice. It's just a symptom, right? It's a way of managing things that we don't think we can manage. But what I do wonder is like, I think about that 17-year-old girl, and, they say about like with drugs and alcohol that people chase the first high forever, because you can have that wonderful first experience or, period of time in the beginning. That's a great experience. It's the nature of addiction, just like gambling. With gambling, it's always the win that creates the addiction. That then is the addiction to losing. You're just losing. And so people wouldn't become addicted to things if they didn't have some surge of great feeling that is an illusion, that it pulls them in and then it captures them, like a prisoner guard, But in terms of like, if you think about it, when was the last time, getting that therapy on, when was the last time you allowed yourself or were able to just be with you and allow a feeling? Like, were you taught not to, or?
I think I just suppressed it because I didn't want to feel it, because I had feelings like you were saying, like not feeling worthy or not feeling loved. And like, I had really unhealthy relationships. And I, at the time when I first started smoking weed, I was living with someone who did a lot of hard drugs. And I know for myself, like, I should never try hard drugs. And I haven't, which I'm grateful for, because I know I'd love it. And then I'd get wrapped into that lifestyle, and I don't want that for myself. And so sitting with my feelings was not really something I did. I was always the go-getter and always the achiever and so on, because that's where I got my love and affection from. My mom, single mom, 4 kids, like she was just trying to do everything right, with my dad not being there since I was a baby.
Yeah.
But my dad was a drug addict and an alcoholic. And he left when I was 2 and never came back. And it took me until I was about, 18, 19 to actually have a real conversation with him and understand that he just had to do what he did in order to stay sober. He's been sober for over 30 years now and happily married and all of that kind of stuff. And now I'm building a relationship with him as an adult, right? And I'm like, how interesting that we just have to go through these aspects of ourselves and just go, okay, we'll figure this out, right? But yeah, it's been I don't think I ever really felt an opportunity to sit with myself.
And what's interesting about, we don't really want to feel pain. If you think about a little girl at 2 years old, that her dad leaves, there's all different reasons, that a dad leaves. But there's a program that I wrote. It's like, my mother, my mirror, my father, my worth. And for little girls, their father is their first, hopefully non-sexual date, their first understanding of their value with men. So like this omission, it's like an abandonment by like, it's not like you really understanding it as abandonment, but the experience, like what would happen if you felt any reality, even the way you just, I'm doing a whole therapy thing. I'm sorry.
I love it.
Yeah. But even I saw your face, even the way you described, like, oh, okay, well, like I have to just, be good natured about it, but the truth is that us, the little girls inside of us, when we don't have a dad, I didn't, we don't have a dad that is communicating to you your value as a feminine, it affects us
Big time.
It affects us to the core. And there's a sense of shame. It feels, even logically, we know it's not true. It feels like it's us.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of compensation for that to try to get, be pleasing enough or valuable enough to others. Right. So what do you think? And what are you thinking when I'm saying this?
It's so true.
Yeah.
And I think it showed a lot in my choice of partners in my life until I came to the conclusion that with my ex, that wasn't love. And when I came to that conclusion for myself, I was single for like 2 years and I had sworn off men and not, just, nope, I'm going to take back my power and be me and do my own thing and whatever. And then I met Kyle. And I was like, oh, shit. Right? Because the second I met him, I knew that was the person I was going to marry. And he was just so different. And he was so kind and like the kind of guy who tucks his shirt in and wears like a belt and gumboots. And I'm like, who is this guy with a mullet, And I sat there and I talked to him at the beach. We were with our friends. And it was literally just like on the end of a pier for 6 hours. We sat there and we had a conversation. And that was the day that I knew I was going to marry him. I was like, man, I just met this guy. And I'm sitting here like telling him my entire life story, but he had a worse story than I had, And so we just really connected, being young and having to be independent and his background versus my background. And we just really connected. And now we're going on 9 years together. And I'm like, man, I think of that day when I met him and I was like, no, like, no, this guy's so different, One of my sisters was like, he's super unconventional. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I like about him, right? Is he's just so different. And now through the losses and everything that we've been through together, he's become so good at reading me and so good at seeing what I need and like being comforting to me and just like hugging me when I need it. And like a couple weeks ago, he called me and was just like, I realized that I haven't been very supportive to you. And I'm like, what do you mean you haven't been supportive? You've been amazing. And he's like, yeah, but I haven't asked you how you're doing. And then I broke down and I was like, man, the fact that you can even think of that makes me so grateful to have you as my partner, and just like being able to praise him for being such a great spouse when he's feeling like he's not doing everything that he could be doing to help me, And so I'm just like, it just helps me feel like that's what love is supposed to be like, like we're supposed to support each other and be team players and, like be able to be like, how are you doing, and how can I support you in your grieving, understanding we're grieving differently and that kind of thing. And I love him so much. So I didn't have that relationship with my dad and I didn't see what it was like. My mom never dated when we were growing up and all I want to do is see her happy, but her and I have always had a very emotionally charged relationship because we are a lot alike, we're both nurturers. We're both very people-pleasing kind of people. And yet I'm like, in my adult years have understood how much I value my relationship with my mother versus when I had so much hatred towards her in my early teen years when she kicked me out when I was young. And then it's like, no, I didn't. And I'm like, yes, you did. Little things like that. And I'm like, yeah, but if I didn't go through those things, if I didn't get independent very young, and if I didn't work, where I worked or meet who I was going to meet, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And so I find so much gratitude in those moments of just going, okay, this is what it's going to look like for me moving forward and focusing on what it's going to be moving forward versus what the past has looked like. Because I know the past can serve me, but it doesn't define who I am in the future.
I'll tell you something. It's interesting because there's this thing that I do with like 7 areas, 8 areas, like financially, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, socially, vocationally, all the different areas of our life, how we have fun, and like a whole life inventory. But when you describe, like you describing your marriage, right? So that people like look at a snapshot of each area of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, a snapshot of that, or like, what is that pattern today? And that communicates to you what your belief is, like what you believe your value is. Because instead of like judging ourselves, if you look in the bank account, if somebody's like always in debt, like there's a possibility that that what they believe, you know, that they always owe, you know, they're never enough, that they always are behind the eight ball. They always have, you know, that they're never enough, right? And what you find, if you don't judge yourself when you look at those snapshots, like you could look at different areas of like what's happened or what's difficult and say, okay, I can see without judgment how I'm programmed. Because, you know, when we're little, 0 to 7 years old, we're in that theta brainwave and we're in a hypnotic state and we're just taking in information and attaching our own meaning to it, right? So it will then spit out all this shit that we don't want in our lives and be like, how is that happening? Why is this happening again? I didn't put my navigation system on. I put it, you know, to go to California. I keep ending up in Mississippi. What is going on, right? I feel like when you describe that with Kyle, that's your husband's name, like that's an image back to you that says something about some belief inside of you that you can draw that, you know, that kind of love to you, like, which is cool. And then it doesn't matter if there's other areas that you don't like. It's just telling you another story, right? How you can change things. This is like it's a big deal that you're going to stop smoking. You know, your whole life is going to unfold, right? Your full identity. Since you're 17, you've smoked? I don't know how old you are. I'm not going to ask. But is it
my life? Literally half my life. I'm 34.
Okay, so your brain just, you know, we become addicted to the feelings that we have felt the most.
Yeah.
You know, our brain creates receptors for those things. So your body is very accustomed to that, you know, and the feelings that came with that. It is really cool because you're going to really restructure your brain now. And as long as you don't do it in fear, if you do it in a state of, you know, the next thing that I love, like I love this, I love that, and trust that inner being. Are you good with your gut? Trusting your gut?
I'm very in tune with myself.
That's good. Wait till you see how in tune you're going to get without that, right? Ganja going on with that. You're gonna love it.
Yeah. Well, even just like deciding to write the book, I'm like, okay, I haven't started it yet, but I know exactly what I need to write. And it's just listening to that feeling of, hey, this is for you so that you can go and change other people's lives. And I'm like, okay. So I had to go through this 4 times now to be able to understand that I need to make a change for myself. And it's not about anybody else but me to overcome my own addictions and my own fear and my own self-loathing and just like going, oh man, this is just keeps happening to me and blah, blah, blah. And oh, I put on weight and like that anger and that aggression and I can't change it. But then like we were talking about earlier, just letting go of control and going, whatever is to be is going to happen, you know, and I can't control it. So why try? Why try and control it? All I can do is what's best for me. All I can do is try and be happy today. And I don't have to be happy all day. You know, I just have to focus on the next step. And like you said, you stumble a little bit and you're like, okay, what's next? Right? And you just keep going, and understanding that is so beautiful because there's just that moment with yourself that you're like, I'm not the same person I was yesterday. I'm this next version of me that is beautiful and kind and successful and excited. And I just look at that version of me and I'm like, that's what I'm chasing. That's pursuit of relentless for me. right?
What I think though,
Yeah.
I don't even think you have to go anywhere for it, girl.
Thank
Within
you.
you,
Yeah.
like Dorothy, you've had it within you all along. And I think that all of that person that you're describing, that's you,
Mhm.
you know, it's, any of those other things would just be fear blocking the real you, right? I mean, that's really that I think, fear is the thing that steals like the life we're meant, who we are,
Yeah.
because you think about it, like happiness. One of the things I do is I choose a state of being. I have done that. So you can keep your head, heart, feet all in the same spot in the now without any judgment of anyone, including yourself. And then that, so when I wake up in the morning, I say, I get to choose how I feel today.
Mhm.
Sometimes I wake up and I don't feel good. I feel badly, sad or whatever. And I say, I get to choose how I feel today. And today I choose, and I choose my state of being. And that the state of being I love is joy, enthusiasm, and peace, because that kind of feels like that covers it all. And when anything, if we're self-aware, anything that deviates from that in the moment that I'm in, I can shift into what is it that just happened, because our thoughts are like popcorn. There's something called chain analysis. If you have one thought and you think it, there's one right after it, and it will take you all the way away from you.
Yeah.
And it's being awake and aware to that is a powerful tool to say, I commit to that state of being and I'm staying there,
Mhm. Yeah. My affirmations are happy, healthy, wealthy, free.
Love it.
Right. And if you just focus on that, yeah, happy, healthy, wealthy, free. And so for myself, I just want to make that life for me.
Yeah.
And I want to have those mentalities of working towards ultimate freedom, working towards just feeling good in the moment and being proud of myself and really focused on loving every day, teaching every day, contributing every day, and like taking care of myself as well, has been a really big focus of mine. And having, I know balance doesn't exist as an entrepreneur, but having that balance in my day to go, hey, and the sun just came out. That's beautiful. Hey, what is authentically me? Right? What am I aiming towards? What am I doing today to take care of myself mentally, physically, emotionally? And what am I doing to give back? Like this year is my year of contribution, because I've just said to myself, what brings me absolute joy? And it's giving back to people. And I spend money on this podcast every single month. And people are like, when are you going to start monetizing on it? I'm like, probably never, And I'm like, I don't really care about that, because I know that if there's someone out there that's listening to this that gets any value out of what I'm saying, it's like being someone else's Ed Milet to how Ed Milet has impacted my life. Right. And I'm like, man, I can't imagine being that for somebody else. Right. And so I love that I get the opportunity to have the money freedom to do my podcast and not have to worry about, you know, any of the things that come along with other people's lack and fear and all of that. Cause I'm like, I just want to be this person. I want to be that person who goes out and changes the world because I can, and you think about it, even just as a mother, it's like, I believe that I was put here for a reason. And I know that that reason was not to be a baker or a heavy equipment operator, but I look at that and I'm like, if I wasn't those things, I wouldn't be who I am today, because I wouldn't, it's just so crazy how it's like, this is your life now and you just got to keep going. But
You look at those, the things that the schooling that you've had besides whatever, formal schooling, is that, you know what it's like to have miscarriages. You also know what it's like to lose a baby at such a later age. You know what that grief is like. You know what it's like to let go of a drug. You know what it's like to lose your dad at 2 and that all of those things, those experiences our connections to people who don't know what to do in those places. And that's a really, and because you're a person who will utilize it and not, live in one long emotional response, like a victim mentality. And I'm not saying you shouldn't feel grief right now, because you have to. It's not natural not to.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's important, but, I think that, that will be, that's a lot of education there that you've had, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, the school of hard knocks,
Yeah.
it just teaches you to embrace who you are and go, hey, I didn't come this far to only come this far. I didn't focus on all of the books that I've read and the hours and hours and hours and hours of personal development that I've done. And my favorite thing is when people are like, Alaina, I didn't even recognize you. And I'm like, good, I'm not the same person, Like, I'm not that pastry chef version of myself. I'm not that heavy equipment operator version of myself anymore. I've evolved. I've changed, and I love myself now. And there's so much more complexity that I know is in there that is like just ready to come out and like shine through me if I can just step into that true self and just go, hey, this is who I am today. All that shit that happened, it happened for me. And I know that I'm not going to stay in that victim mentality. Am I going to have bad days? Yes, that's okay. Am I going to have days when I'm like, just frustrated? And yeah.
One big thing with grief is like this unexpected anger.
Yeah.
Just kind of overtakes, can overtake you. So it's like not to be afraid of it. I think anything that, if whatever we're feeling, if we ask, what is it that I'm afraid of? What is the threat? Will really, and you can shift into, there's something about choosing not to be afraid, right? Because even in grief, like what's the fear is what, I remember I would feel like, am I ever going to be normal again? Am I ever going to feel good again? Like that was a fear for me, right? Will this ever feel better? Will I ever be the same? Like what am I losing?
Yeah.
But we just like kind of ride it, like, can I do a Bible thing? Like something in the Bible? So like Jesus in the boat. I always talk about Jesus in the boat, and his guys are freaking out because there's a storm. They're throwing things over. They're trying to wake him up. They're like, we're going to die, and he's like, and he's sound asleep. And, he wakes up and he says, wind and waves be still. And from a place of peace, he has command. So it's like, our inner world, like most of the world is living with an external locus of control. They're reacting to everything around them, and that's being emotionally drunk. That's why, like with drug and alcohol addiction or any addiction, doesn't matter, eating disorder, emotional sobriety is the most important thing, that you go inward first, you want to call out, so what we are inside commands the outside. And, I love that story because they were trying to fix everything from the outside and freaking out and afraid, right?
Beautiful.
Well, yeah.
I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And I'm excited to get in front of you again. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a different version of myself next time we meet, and I'm excited to see how many lives you're impacting and what you're doing as well. So thank you for doing what you do. And thank you for going through what you went through in order to become this version of yourself that can serve others and help people work through their own steps. So I hope that people really do reach out and get access to you, because I think you're going to be able to change a lot of lives. So thank you for today. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be with you. I really appreciate you.
Much love. All right, guys. Share the show. It's Relentless. Signing out.